Partners for Electoral Reforms and member watching the vote working group, Yaga Africa. Thanks for joining me on Nigerian Studio. Well, we'll have a couple of discussions and I'll be joined by other guests as the program progresses. We shall also be going to other network centers on the course of the discussion. But before then, let's take a couple of reports. From Oka, Anambra State, our correspondent, Joy Iluogbe, reports on the people's preparation for the elections in Oka, the Anambra State capital. The report.
Thank you, studios. Millions of Nigerians will on Saturday, 23rd February, be going to the polls to elect who will be Nigeria's next president, and also members of the National Assembly in their various states. In Anambra State, the one-day public holiday declared by the federal government has enabled a lot of people, especially workers, to travel to their various towns in preparation for the polls. Many say in spite of the postponement, they are still ready to go to the polls to elect who will be Nigeria's next president. Various motor parks within the metropolis were a beehive of activities as people struggled to board vehicles to different parts of the state and outside where they were registered. For them, participation in Saturday's election is crucial as its outcome will determine who sits at the helm of the country's affairs for the next 4 years.
I'm very prepared, very well. I'm traveling to my village this evening against tomorrow.
I'm not from this town, from Enugu, so I'll be going back to Enugu for the election.
I want to travel to my village where I can go and cast my vote.
Security agencies on their part say they are fully prepared to ensure safety before, during and after the elections as they enjoin eligible voters to come out and exercise their franchise.
The command, with cooperation of other security agencies, had carried out a threat analysis and discovered major flashpoints such as Inewi, Ajali, Onisha, Obosi, Ogidi, Ihiala, and the rest like that. Adequate deployment was made in those areas and other places in order to ensure a safety and security.
In Oka, Joy Iluogbe, NTA News.
That was an update from Oka. Now from Bonny Kingdom, River State. The people of the kingdom are all set for the 2019 elections. Oyinge Fineface reports on the level of readiness by the Independent National Electoral Commission and other key players for the elections.
Now, after that interesting journey from Port Harcourt to Bonny, we are interfacing with members of this community who say they are indeed prepared for the general elections tomorrow. With me here is someone that will share with me how much he is prepared.
With the history we have in Bonny Kingdom, it's one of the most peaceful community in this river state, and you can see the movement of people. Everything is very calm. If you go to that side, you will see the INEC office. Everything is order. The local government, you can see everything is in order. So we are fully prepared to conduct peaceful, credible election for this year 2019.
Thank you very much. Now from the INEC office, we saw ad hoc staff sorting materials that will be distributed to all the wards and units in the local government area from the headquarters office.
They are doing the sorting so that they will be able to go to the various wards for the election. Reason being that since most of the wards are in the riverine area, it's better they sort it out now so that it's easier for them to move very early tomorrow.
The chairman of council has also assured that all his set security agents are on ground to ensure that everybody comes out to vote without any infractions.
The atmosphere is free. As I'm speaking with you, you can attest to that fact. The atmosphere is not free and fair. You can't even have any reason to walk into this place freely. So our people are ready and they are set for the elections.
What remains now for Bonny Kingdom is the time for them to come out with their PVCs to make their voices heard at the polls. From Bonny, River State, Oyinge Fineface, NTA News.
From southwest Nigeria, the Independent National Electoral Commission has successfully deployed sensitive materials to various local government councils in Osun. Over to Tokwe Alabi.
People are already moving materials, particularly, electoral officers, moving materials from this point to the registration area centers where it will be distributed for electoral officers and ad hoc staff to work on. Most INEC local government offices are now a beehive of activities on the eve of the election as materials are being sorted out for movement to the registration area centers, otherwise known as wards. The materials would be distributed through the 30 local government areas to the 332 wards spread across the state and, of course, to the 3,010 polling units and the 753 voting points. The Commission is engaging the service of the members of National Union of Road Transport Workers for the movement of the materials.
As I'm talking to you now, there's no any challenge in our side. We provide our vehicle according to the agreement made by the INEC. And the problem is that our people demanding for the money because they are yet to pay off fully for the last week. Our driver demanding for that, but we're petting them to let us complete the job before we ask for that money.
No problem. All the vehicle we won't carry the materials. This always well.
And hope there won't be any need for any problem with your drivers.
No problem. All the driver is here. We carry all the materials to go one ward to local government to ward.
The Commission in Osun State is already providing logistics for a better accommodation of its ad hoc staff, particularly core members who will pass their nights at the rack. Meanwhile, activities are in top gear at various registration area centers across Osun State for Saturday's presidential and National Assembly elections. A total of 1,266,587 permanent voter cards were collected from 1,680,498 registered voters in Osun State, with 413,911 PVCs uncollected. In Osogbo, Tokwe Alabi, NTA News.
Political wards in the local government areas of Gombe State have received sensitive electoral materials. Riyanu Bala tells us more.
Arrangements have been concluded for the conduct of presidential and National Assembly elections in Adamawa State, as both men and materials are being deployed to various polling units. The resident electoral commissioner of INEC in Adamawa State, Kasim Ganagaidam, said, so far there are no challenges as the commission is fully set for the exercise.
Very good security assurance report from all the security agencies. The state is calm and ready for the election tomorrow. Also, on our part, I reported that all the important things that are supposed to be done have been done. Adamawa State was among the first to deploy to the government areas for Wednesday. By Wednesday 6:45, we have deployed all the materials to the 21 local government areas of the state. And as I speak now, most of the materials are at the rack centers.
Okay,
where training, refresher training is going on two fronts. On the operation of the smart card readers, also on the conduct processes of the election for the presiding officers and the assembly presiding officers.
We have deployed well over 5,000 security agencies, that is the police and other sister agencies inclusive.
In Iola, Rayanu Bala, NTA News.
From Bala links us to the studio discussion now. Well, Ezenwa, you've seen it. Elections are about huge deployments, financial, logistics, human, and if all these put together by tomorrow, there's a relapse. It amounts to a colossal failure. So, expectation.
I think a relapse is unimaginable at this point. I don't think anybody wants to apologize or regret anything a second time. No more. It's no longer about expectations. It's about what we all have to do to ensure that tomorrow is successful. Fortunately for the country, we had INEC giving daily briefings from last week, which was very interesting, almost centimeter by centimeter, blow by blow account of where things are. And as at today, I think, unlike what it was on Friday last week, the expectations is now concrete that we're going to have elections tomorrow. And so the bigger, challenge will be to ensure that these 72 million people who have picked up their PVC, that we're able to get a greater number, a greater percentage of that number come out tomorrow to cast their votes.
A lot has been said, but let's go back to political science now, or what you call in the secondary school level government, or social studies. Civil responsibility, democratic rights, a lot has been said about it. Now, tomorrow is a countdown to the elections, and by and large, last week by this time we were hopeful, but somewhere along there it was, but now there's all amount of hope that it will take place. Now, to the people and democratic rights, the people and civil responsibility, because one, if you don't go out to vote, you have taken a decision. If you go out to vote, you have also taken a decision, more or less. So let's emphasize on this.
Okay, it's almost become like a refrain. I've become almost like a broken record in terms of when I say that if you don't vote, you have voted. Okay. That's true. And why are we voting? What is the value for voting? The value for voting is that we reinforce our belief in democracy as not having an alternative. In spite of all the challenges that we're going through, dictatorship is a dirty word right now. So those of us who worked for this democracy have a responsibility to uphold it. And that's the bottom line. If we live in a democracy, we must not take it for granted. We are having challenges, but the freedom to determine and hire people who will preside over government, the legislature, the executive, especially the presidency, and the National Assembly in the next 4 years is what we're engaging tomorrow. And it's important, because if it was a dictator, no matter how benevolent he is, you can't tell him when to go or when to come. He decides for himself. So the power to alternate leadership is sacrosanct. If we don't like you, we kick you out. If we like you, we ask you to stay. The majority of people, that freedom to do that is something that we cannot take for granted.
Okay. Well, Nigeria is huge, and it's a potpourri of so many tribes, so many ethnic nationalities, and tomorrow that test will be brought again. Various tribes will meet at a common place. Looking at tolerance, how best can we go about this?
See, hunger has no tribal marks, right? So, meaning that whether you are Igbo, you are Yoruba, you are Ishekiri, you are Ijo, you are Angas, whatever you are, there is something. There are basic things that you need for your livelihood. Those things are the reason for government. Ethnicity, religion, how tall you are, how short you are is immaterial now. Yeah. What is important is that we have the opportunity to say thank you for what you've done for us. You can go and rest, or we want you to continue. That for me is...
I'm talking about, for instance,
tolerance. I'm building that.
And tomorrow, most Nigerians from various ethnic nationalities will be found in the common place going to vote.
I'm building a narrative.
Beautiful.
I'm building a narrative that helps us understand the value of not doing otherwise. That's the most important thing. That if you understand now that the person in Kaura Nomoda and the other person in Ekeremo, what binds them together is the things that join humanity together, that we can feel. We can feel pain. We can feel joy. We can feel excited. We can feel despondent. Now, what do we want? We want to have government that responds to all of us, that has no interest in finding out where I come from before electricity can be made available, before drugs can be made available. That's the common denominator for everyone. So the excitement that you're going to see is based on that we have opportunity to exercise our right as citizens. And there is importance in understanding the power of this citizenship. If you understand the power of your citizenship, then you value it, you'll be excited. Tomorrow, the president of our country has only one PVC. He's not going to have two. The cobbler in my village has one PVC. No matter how powerful you are, you cannot be given more than one PVC. So the quality of going to vote is something that excites me and makes me feel that, look, no matter what you say, I have a say in determining who runs my government. There is nothing as important as that. So that builds you into the tolerance issue that you are talking about. That because you have this power to determine who runs the affairs of state for the next 4 years, and that all of us, no matter how powerful we are, we can only have one opportunity to do so, becomes the reason for which you understand that in the next is like you said, if you like football match, oh, this match we are going to defeat you, blah blah blah. In the next 90 minutes, all of this is over. By tomorrow, from 8 a.m. to about 2 p.m., you've been able to exercise that right. If you do it peacefully, if you do it in an orderly manner, if you don't cause any trouble, by the next 24 hours, this matter is over, our lives come back to us, and we move ahead.
At times an issue comes up and they say, let's not overflog it. But for emphasis, there are some, no matter how many times you say it, it is never overflogged. Tomorrow is, some people say the D-Day, some say the E-Day. E-Day meaning the election day. Yeah. Electoral offenders. So much has been said, so much has been misinterpreted. Can we speak to electoral offenders who are planning, despite all the caution, the warnings? The very last one came from the Inspector General of Police, and he said that electoral offenders will be arrested and prosecuted. Because at the end of the day, people who are vulnerable, who have been arrested, want to take it the other way around.
Now, the issue about election security is very, very important to understand it. Can you over-securitize? If you don't provide security, if something happens, what will happen? What will the people say? So it has two effects. It can inspire confidence. It can give people the capacity, the reason to come out to vote. But if people also don't feel safe, it can also. But I would want to follow the side that it is better to mobilize security to ensure that those who come out to vote will vote without let or hindrance and without fear. So what does that mean? What does the laws of our country provide? The laws are very clear that the polling unit will have unarmed policemen. Okay. And 300 meters away from that polling unit, you are going to have armed security people.
Okay, we'll come back to Abuja. Right now, all parts of the country are ready for tomorrow, all Nigerians, the electorate, and like you said, it's just everybody from the Mr. President to the lowest citizen has just one PVC to exercise his franchise. And it's all excitement. I hear Lagos is not left out. Let's see what Lagos have. Is Lagos also very excited about tomorrow?
Oh yes, Lagos is very excited about tomorrow. And I hear that everything is in place to have a very successful outing. The presidential and National Assembly elections are a few hours away, and Nigerians are anxious to cast their vote. Rotimi Oluwagbemi visited specific spots in Lagos to feel the pulse of the electorate. His report.
Less than 24 hours to the elections, traders at the famous Balogun market were busy attending to buyers. Those selling luxury items like clothing speak on the demand.
Mostly people will go for food stuff today, so they have to equip their house with food stuff. Oh, I don't see people buying clothes.
I expect my customer when they come buy market today.
Traders of other commodities, including foodstuff, reveal that prices are stable. A few, however, disagree.
Things no increase. Our market day as the day before normal price. This one is 650, and this one is 600 naira, and this one is 1,000, and another one is here 550 each.
So the price change?
No change.
No, everything they normal. No add money now. Now the market, behold, something market, you don't add money. Now market, you don't add money now. Everything don't go down.
The traders expect buyers to stock up ahead of the election day. In Lagos, Amaka Owo, NT News.
Thank you very much, Amaka. That was a markets report depicting the activities in various markets and business districts in Lagos. Well, we have a guest in the studio. He's Shaya Banjoko, a legal practitioner with many years of practice to his credit. Shaya, the elections are holding tomorrow. Are you very optimistic that everything would go hunky-dory?
Yes, I am. I am quite optimistic. We've had one false start.
Yeah.
You know, we're ready to go again. The INEC chairman has said elections will hold tomorrow. He's pretty optimistic that everything is now in place to ensure that the elections hold freely, fairly, and completely. I don't expect there to be any hiccups any longer in the process. They've had now about enough time to get things right. So yes, I am optimistic that elections will hold and things will go, you know.
Where are you registered to vote?
I used to live in a district called Shomolu, in Akoka in Shomolu, so that's where I'm registered to vote. I now live in Surulere,
yes.
And so if I were to sleep
Did you
in my
regularize
house,
your position, or are you not going to vote tomorrow?
I didn't move my my voter's card to where I currently live. But as I'm here now speaking on Nigeria Decides, I'm deeming myself to be an impartial observer. So maybe I should just leave things as they are.
But really, don't you think that technology and the positioning of Nigerians is at a stage where if you have a PVC, you can vote anywhere. You can vote from any location. After all, with your ATM card, it doesn't matter where you are in the country, you can withdraw or transfer money. Isn't it about time that we gave serious consideration to that issue?
Well, I like that part where you said that we give serious consideration to the issue. Yes, it is time to give serious consideration to the issue. Quite what will come out of that consideration is another matter. Nigeria is a big, complex country. I don't know where you're from, but
right here.
Sorry?
I'm from right here.
right, okay. So, you know, there's people who live in Lagos who want to vote for candidates outside of Lagos. That, if we continue the way the structure of our elections currently, as the elections currently are structured, and elections are going to hold on one day at a certain time. So if I say I'm from Abia State, I live in Lagos, I want to vote for an Abia election, I'll go to the voters' polling station, and then I would have to call up the election situation for Abia State. And it's not, you know, the little technological knowledge that I have tells me that it's not going to be quite as easy as we would like it to be as things currently stand. Now, quite what technology can do is all up in the air. It's, you know, it can be really imaginative. But I'm not sure that quite right now the analogy with the bank account is right. I think that as things are, we can keep it like this, improve the current structures and, you know, the current structures that we have, and make things smoother as they are.
You sound like a very conservative person, not really in a hurry to catch up with tomorrow today.
I am a conservative person.
Yes.
I'm not in a hurry to catch up with tomorrow today, but I'm looking forward to tomorrow and trying to make things right for tomorrow. So when we get to tomorrow, we'll be ready.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're one of those people who live your lives dependent on the premise that tomorrow might not even come, but tomorrow will come, and we are voting tomorrow. What gives you so much faith in Nigeria's democracy?
Since 1999 till today, we have trudged along. It's not always been smooth, but we are here now, uninterrupted for this many years. There's no reason not to be optimistic about tomorrow. So my conservatism does not make me pessimistic. There's no reason to be. I see no reason to be. Yes, there are understandable fears every day about the future. But just as we've trudged along every day, I think that we will find our way. Democracy all across the world is very old for some people. It's young here. Some countries have had 200 years of experience. Some countries have had more, you know, and we can't expect...
Some countries have had less.
And some have had less, and perhaps are doing as well, some better, some not quite as well as we are. But we are, like I said, where we are. There's no reason to be pessimistic about the future or to think that things aren't going to get better. I'd look at my glass as half full.
Okay, you say we are where we are.
Yeah.
Where are we?
We're in 2019. We're about to have another set of elections. All the elections up till date have had hiccups, like I said, challenges, but they've always produced results. We have lived with those results. We have been able to resolve those of them that require resolution through judicial process. And, you know, we are about to start another tranche. That's where we are. It's a good place. It's a good place. We have some people, in some countries rather, there's been breaks in the democratic process. You know, they can't quite continue at some point because of some
We've had
things.
that here too.
Yeah. Really?
Yes.
I wouldn't say that since 1999 there's been a
since
point.
1999, no.
Yeah, so this is the current democracy that we are, you know, the current...
Well, on that very optimistic note, let me interrupt you and go back to Rotimi's report that the presidential and National Assembly elections, as we all know, are a few hours away, and Nigerians are more than anxious to cast their vote. Rotimi Oluwagbemi visited specific spots in Lagos to feel the pulse of the electorate. His report.
This is Ajegule, popularly known as AJ City. I tried to find out their level of preparedness for tomorrow's presidential and National Assembly elections.
We are well prepared for tomorrow's election. So far, the INEC have promised that the election will hold tomorrow. So everybody are well prepared.
I've got my PVC, and I'm prepared to vote tomorrow by God's grace.
I'm preparing for this election. If I have my PVC with me here,
I'm Nigerian, I will vote. I must vote.
Have you got your PVC?
Everything is in my hand.
Go and vote tomorrow, Abby. So we're all ready for it.
I'm quite preparing because at least I'll be coming out to vote tomorrow.
Prepare for election, and we are afraid make the election be peacefully. Prepare very hot, and in fact, I prepare well tomorrow.
Well, thank you very much for that report, Rotimi. Shaya.
Yeah.
You know, something that intrigues me, or has intrigued me all along, when it comes to the electoral process, particularly voting in Nigeria, is the presence of foreign observers. Do you think that is a necessity? Is it necessary for us? Because in other climes, they vote. They don't invite observers or monitors from Africa and the third world, so to speak. Why do we need to validate our elections by inviting international observers?
Interesting that you say the third world.
Yes.
So there is a first world perhaps, and then a second.
Yes, obviously.
And then we are the third. So why do you need to validate? Because you're trying to advance, you're trying to progress from a third world country into what a second world country is and perhaps a first world country is. And in order to do so, you know how things work. Before you get admitted into a society, you get examined by people who have been admitted into that society ahead of you. So if I want to be admitted into the second world, I perhaps want to invite them to see how I'm beginning to do things like them so that they can begin to understand that I am getting there. It is not unusual. It is now usual for African countries to have foreign observers. Some Pan-African characters may not quite agree. I would say, I don't feel the need for them to be here. I think that we can carry things along very well by ourselves. We can score ourselves when we do well and when we don't without necessarily having a pass mark from anybody elsewhere. So I don't think it's necessary. But if it's not harming us, we might as well.
Okay, I'm going to ask, what is your level of interest or participation in politics?
I am not currently a card-carrying member of any political party, and as such, I am not up for elections or a candidate for any office. There's no independent candidates in Nigeria anyway for now. But to the extent that the progress of my life, my work life, my family life is determined by how political events, I am very interested to see that things are done right, things are done properly, and that progress is made in that space because it tells on, my lifestyle and well-being and that of my family, the whole society. You know how it is. I live in this society. I naturally want things to go well for the society so that it will naturally, things will go well for me as well. So I am very interested. Perhaps more than the average man, but maybe a little less than the average candidate. Yeah, I am very interested.
The point I'm trying to underscore is all the systems. I mean, I've had quotes and innuendos alluding to the fact that if capable people do not stand up to be counted, do not take part in the political process, you will leave, I hate to use the word dregs, but people who are not as qualified as you are, people who don't have your vision, people who don't have your experience, get elected. And at the end of the day, they call the shots. Are you at any point thinking of getting involved actively in partisan politics?
Yes. Yes. Like you have said, if you don't participate, you'll be ruled by whatever you find, by whoever gets there, and that's who's going to participate. So I am a firm believer in us needing to participate properly in the process. That when I say us, I mean people who are enlightened, people who have the best interests of the country, the society at heart. So yes, I do think that a lot more people need to get involved. I'm happy. I see that there's the beginnings of a breakout, such that we're seeing not only the regular political gladiators, participating in the process. We're seeing a lot more people now, people who are outside of the regular, participants, and that's a good move. It's encouraging for people like me, young people, enlightened people, educated people, and there's a consciousness beginning to develop that there is a need to come out and put yourself up in some way, join the process in some way, outside of just talking about the process. So there's so much education going on about coming out to vote. It's hugely important. And then as a next step, after people get sensitized to the need to vote, there will then be a natural progression into participating more as candidates, as, you know, party members and things like that. For so long, there's been the feeling, maybe wrong, maybe not, that politics is for a certain group of people. It can't be so. As long as we continue to keep it like that, we're not going to make a lot of progress. So we need to get out of that mindset and move forward and, you know, participate a lot more.
Well, let me interrupt you and take this report, because our traditional rulers are also very interested in the political system. With a few days again, with a few hours to the presidential and National Assembly elections, some traditional rulers have converged on Lagos to advocate the need for better understanding and cooperation with security agents to ensure that peace reigns during and after the polls. Doyin Dia reports that they appeal to candidates and parties to adhere strictly to the peace accord they signed in the interest of the country. His report.
It is a roundtable meeting on the state of the nation and the build-up to the 2019 elections, which will commence in a couple of days. The unity of Nigeria, which has become imperative, was the basic message. But achieving the expected peace and unity of the country will be incomplete without speaking to issues of insecurity and hate speeches, which in most cases fuel aggression across party lines and race. That is why these royal fathers are appealing to Nigerians, political actors and opinion leaders to tread the path of peace even as Nigerians move to the poll.
Nigeria is older than most of us. Nigeria will still outlive most of us. The best we should individually and collectively do is to contribute our quota and living Nigeria better than we met it.
Election should be conducted peacefully. I urge the youth, vote and live peacefully.
We are begging to all traditional rulers, nobody is exempted now, wherever they are, to start thinking about peace.
They should vote by their conscience, and there will be no problem in any domain.
And government efforts towards addressing insecurity and insurgency, they appeal to Nigerians to show understanding and join hands with the federal government rather than politicizing matters that affect the peace and welfare of the citizenry. In Lagos, Doyin Dia, NT News.
Doyin, thank you very much for that report. Now, I come back to you, Shaya. You said that it is critical, those are not your words, that enlightened people pay greater attention and take a greater interest in their political environment, and you hope at some point to get involved in that actively. For tomorrow's election, what would be your advice to Nigerians at large, particularly in Lagos?
Make up your mind in your house. Go to your polling unit if you are registered to vote and eligible to vote tomorrow. Cast your vote for candidates of your choice. Stand back, listen, watch the votes counted, listen when the results are announced, and go back home and wait for the end, for the collation and announcement of final results. We must be mindful of characters among us who may not necessarily be interested in a peaceful process, and as such we should avoid any form of aggression, any form of anything that can trigger a situation. I would advise that everyone actively avoid such situations. So
violence does happen, thuggery. What do you think fuels all of that?
Sometimes personal issues, sometimes an inability to patiently await results, and sometimes bad faith.
Well, Shaya, thank you very much for making out the time to participate in this program. We wish you the very best in all your endeavors.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, viewers, thank you very much. Abuja, here we come.
Thank you so much, Bayo Adewusi. Back in Abuja, while Lagos was on, I was joined here by the Director of Voter Education and Publicity of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Oluwole Osaze. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Good evening.
And also on the Nigerian studio is Jide Ojo, Public Affairs Analyst.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me. Good evening, Nigerians.
Like we said, if you're just joining us, the Nigerian studio will crisscross the length and breadth of the country. Well, quickly, let me start with Osaze, because people seeing him tonight will imagine that he has come to break one big news tonight again. What's the update?
Thank you very much. Well, the big news is that INEC is set, Nigerians are set, and the elections will commence at 8 a.m. tomorrow. So we urge everybody to get some rest and be prepared to go and exercise your franchise come the morning, anytime between 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. And to behave in an orderly way and be responsible about it. It's a solemn thing. It's a very important thing. It's something that will determine the future of our country for the next 4 years. So we'll take it with the equanimity, we'll take it with the weight it deserves. And it's a very serious affair. So basically, everybody be ready.
Well, a lot of persons admire the concept adopted by INEC, talking about the daily briefings by the chairman. It was gradual, the pitch picked, and today it appeared as though he gave a riot act instead of a briefing.
Well, it's a briefing, but laying down some basic ground rules, and that is why we thought it was important that the Inspector General of Police be there for that particular briefing, being the last before the opening of the polls. With what happened last week, and there was need to restore some confidence. Some Nigerians were a bit despondent, some were losing hope, and basically, I guess, you know, the tonic for the troops, as they say. It was important to get people on the side and get them to understand that it's better to have shifted the polls by 7 days, or scheduled to 7 days, than to start a process that was almost certainly doomed to be chaotic. And once the process is chaotic, once you don't start well, the likely perception is that it's not a credible process. So we still could have gone ahead, and but we thought it's better to bite the bullet and do things appropriately, do things in a way that will be right from the start.
Okay.
Give a sense of
Jide, let me come to you. Something very beautiful happened. When INEC rescheduled the election for tomorrow, there were a lot of doubts, fears, but I think something that built confidence even stronger was these daily briefings. People were now monitoring, they're expecting maybe on a Wednesday or on a Thursday, maybe on a Friday, the chairman will now say, well, in view of A, B, C, D factors, we're not going back on it, we'll shift the goalposts again. But this time around, he sustained the position. Do you think this added beauty to all this? Because people had fears before now.
It does. Again, with the benefit of hindsight, if you recall, in 2011, when the post was shifted by a week, the commission ended up with better elections than we had in 2007. In 2015, when the post was also shifted for about 6 weeks, we had a better election than we had in 2011. And now we are hoping that we'll be 3 times lucky and have a better election than 2015. Because that's what Professor Mahmoud Yakub has promised us right from when he assumed duty in November of 2015, that he was going to give Nigeria better elections than all the previous ones that we had. Of course, many of us, including myself, was not happy with the shift. I wish we had pressed on and had this beautiful, peaceful, successful, credible election on the 16th of February as was planned in the last 2 years. But Providence came in and it has to be shifted. But all is well that ends well. The daily briefings gave us restored confidence, but the icing on the cake for me was the president's broadcast this morning, where he was able to also lend weight to the fact that it was very presidential, as I said on Network News, that he was now even encouraging more people to go vote, assuring international and domestic observers of their safety and security, and also that it looks forward to better elections through the Independent National Electoral Commission. So it's a combination of factors. And you will see that what Professor Mahmoud Yakub is doing at the national level, the resident electoral commissioners too were doing at their respective states, carrying the media along, showing them how the distributions were going on and all of that. And, you know, yesterday in particular, the breakdown of the collection of PVCs, how many people are expected in each state to vote, how many uncollected PVCs, where are the PVCs warehouse. We know that the approximately uncollected, I think about 11 million uncollected PVCs are warehoused with the central bank, because given the recent asking on the critical infrastructure of the commission, it will have been very unwise to keep it in any strong room within the commission. And, you know, now everybody knows that if there are votes over and above the number of collected PVC, because now this is where the mathematics starts. This is where you start doing your maths. It's not, you are not benchmarking this election against 84 million voters again. You are benchmarking it against 72 million. Sure. And that's the number we want to see coming out. And in the last general election, we have 44% voter turnout on the average. We want to see this election crossing the benchmark.
We'll come to all that, but, you know, Nigeria Decides Studio by the Nigerian Television Authority is about Nigeria. So we'll come with sustain another line of thought. As I speak, Jos Network Center is standing by. We'll be going to Jos to also see Lagos join us to say they are all excited. And we believe Jos also is ready, that's Plateau State. So let's join Jos to hear what they have.
Thank you very much, Omini. 2.1 million voters, thereabouts. It's actually 2.09 million voters on the Plateau are waiting anxiously for the opening of the polls as we begin the strings of elections for the 2019 general elections. And in Plateau, the enthusiasm is high. We told you that earlier in the day. But you would also hear from personalities who are on the ground, just as NTA has been, and who will be telling you, both from the public angle and from the election officials' angle, how it has been on the Plateau and neighboring states, actually, here. So welcome to Jos as we lead you into the last hours before the opening of the polls. I am Femi Okiowo. I also have with me in the studio Mr. Osariti Imahirebo. You're welcome. He is the head INEC voter education on the Plateau.
Thank you very much.
Also have a public commentator and a lecturer with the Federal University Keshere in Gombe State, Isa Abdullahi. Welcome to the Nigeria Decide Studios.
Thank you very much, sir.
Now, let's first take our story to set the stage, particularly the one that has to do with INEC's preparation. The Independent National Electoral Commission offices in various local government areas in Plateau State have distributed sensitive and non-sensitive materials across the state. Abba Abubakar Yakubu visited Jos North and Jos South local government areas INEC offices for an update. Let's hear from him.
Today we are at INEC office of Jos North local government area to witness the continuation of the distribution of sensitive and non-sensitive materials. We are now together with the electoral officer of Jos North, Mr. Godwin Edibo, to confirm how far is the distribution.
As far as we're concerned, we Jos North area office of INEC, we are fully set. We are fully ready for the election on Saturday. We have all our materials and we are deploying the materials to the rack centers where they will stay overnight, and by the grace of God, early in the morning tomorrow, there will be deployment to the polling units.
This was how MTL crew met the office of the Jos South electoral officer, Mr. B.C. Ajala, attending to some supervisory presiding officers who will be conducting the election across the local government area.
We are trying to check if all the settings are correct, the date, the time, and the particular polling unit.
A visit to one of the 14 registration area centers in Jos North, situated in Government Secondary School Laranto, met with officials of INEC, security agents, and some ad hoc staff, offloading the materials before sharing to various polling units within Jemta Apata Ward. Divisional Police Officer of the Laranto Division, CSP Obi Nasimon, who was met on ground, assured the safety of the materials and the personnel who will stay over the night distributing the materials.
Personally, I'm on ground, so you don't entertain any fear. People are going to vote. Both our polling units, we have a minimum of 3 per unit. So we're going to have free rancor pools within this area.
NTA crew observed that the situation was peaceful and calm, as INEC officials and ad hoc staff are making efforts to ensure a hate-free exercise. In Jos, Abba Abubakar Yakubu, NTA News.
Thank you, Abba. But we'll first break down some of those issues before we go to our next story. And let me take your sanity. Apart from the materials, are the ad hoc staff now on the ground?
Yes, we started, we activated the rack centers 9 a.m. By 12 noon, materials and officials were at the various rack centers. As we speak, around 6-7 today, this evening, the ad hoc staff were given refresher training. And after that, we had a meeting with the coalition officers. So everything that has to do with both materials, men, we're all ready. What we're just waiting for is to commence the process.
The training was held
at the rack centers, yes, at the various rack centers.
Okay.
That is for the ad hoc staff.
Okay.
We had to give them refresher training at the various rack centers. We have 207 rack centers, and so we had those refresher training. But for the coalition officers, we had a meeting with them just to let them know their postings and then when they will be deployed tomorrow. That took place in Georgetown here.
Okay. For a voting population of at least the ones that have collected their voters card, approximately 2.1 million, we have 2,631 polling centers. Is this enough to take care of? Because we are beginning to see that there is a possibility of an overflow in each polling unit. How do you take care of that?
Well, that is why we created voting points. There are voting points, what we call, you might call baby units, close to these polling units. And with the number that we have created, it's quite encouraging that these people would be accommodated within. But again, let's look at the figure that you said, okay, 2,095,409. Yes. It's not all of them really that will vote.
One is always a little impressed.
Yes.
I mean, we're talking about that figure because we know that 2.48 million people registered.
Yes.
Now, 2.09 collected their PVCs. Now, if somebody collects his PVC, we have a right to believe that that kind of person would wish to vote.
Yeah, but you find out that even among those who collected the PVCs, we've been updated with requests today. Some people are telling us where they don't know their polling units, that we had to even start, we needed to tell them the platform where they could identify where they would identify where their polling units are.
Yeah,
again,
voter education.
Yes,
vote educates us more.
Yeah, because I know that sometime in November last year we pasted the polling units. And we expected people to go through those areas to identify where they are. But as at now, people are still saying we don't know our polling unit. And so the where to locate the polling unit is www.gotomypu.com. And when we started that, I remember when we started this Nigerian Decide last week, we tried it. I tried it with Sani's PVC, and right here, and he got where he registered and where he will vote. And a lot of people that we had given this same platform today had been calling to say, thank you, INEC, for giving us the opportunity. I know that the chairman even said so today, to enable people go and to know where they registered and where they will vote. The fact that there will be restriction of movement, it's better for people to know where they will vote before they wake up in the morning. And I agree that we said, okay, if you did your transfer and you find out that it will be difficult for you to trace to locate where you are now, you could sleep with your friends. You know what we're discussing. I said it's really not quite easy because a lot of people registered and they did their transfers, they got new cards, but some of them didn't really identify where they ought to vote.
Okay. Let's take Issa's reaction to some of these ups and downs, the hopes that's been raised in the last 1 week, the corrections that have been made. Let's take your reaction to some of these things.
We are actually, yes, because of the postponement of the election. A lot of people became so much unhappy with it, and some were asked to go back to their places of work, some far distances, some maybe from Jos to Lagos. I know some of my neighbors even from Jos to Lagos, some of them to Maiduguri, some to Calabar, and so on and so forth. You can see the distance is far, and they became much discouraged on the election. But then with the voter education, with the kind of attempts by the government and INEC, and again, they have been trying a lot of things. They've been doing a lot of things to make sure that these people will have the confidence again to go and vote. Because if you don't go out and vote, you will definitely create a kind of political trouble in the country. You will have a situation whereby large number of people will not go and vote, and if they are the kind of people that will vote a good government, that will provide water, will provide education, will provide all the infrastructure we need, and they don't go out to vote, then the reverse will be the case. They will leave those people who will be paid money, who will have money in their own pockets, who will have money just to spend for 1 day at the expense of the generality of the country and at the expense of progress and development. So we want to see a situation whereby the young people, the adults, the women, the sectors, and then all other people in the society will come out and support the government and go out and vote and exercise their right then to vote out a good government they want at whatever level in the country. Then I'm happy that the federal government, the INEC, and other bodies like National Union of Road Transport Workers, they have been making a lot of efforts to see that they reduce transport fares for the people moving around the country. And then unions of, I see those people in the aviation industry, they have also made a discount of about 50% of their fares. And then I heard of an airline, a company was reducing all the transport fares around the country to around 16,000 naira so that everybody can move freely from far distances around the country. Even the government was, from the side of the government is trying to pay even salaries of the federal, most especially the federal government, so that people can have something in their pocket to enable them move from one part of the country country to the other. So the preparation here, right from the time I was even driving to come to the studio, I was passing by seeing some young people singing dances here and there, that they are happy, they want to come out to exercise their rights to vote for the candidates they want. So I feel it's quite impressive.
That's the kind of picture we painted earlier in the day when Nigeria Decides studio came over to Jos. But we all know that there are still flashpoints on the plateau. Take Chudunwada and Wan Rukuba and Bauchi Ring Road. There are places where people think are flashpoints on the plateau. What are your thoughts concerning those areas where there
and never to bring back the hands of the clock back, so that we can have a peaceful and acceptable election, and we have election free of violence that will usher in a new government that will take care of the masses, and then we have a peaceful plateau. And we are happy with that, because sometimes back, some people were trying to create some kind of troubles in the state, but then with the intervention of those kind of people coming out to advise and tell the youth not to behave that way, they have listened, and we want to believe this time around also they will comply with the things we've been saying in the society.
Yes, thanks, Issa Abdullahi. With that, let us quickly take our next story, which is related to the issue we have just spoken about. 8,000 security personnel have been deployed to different areas of Plateau State ahead of the elections. Commissioner of Police, Plateau State Command, Isaac Akin Moyede, said the figure includes other sister security agencies in the state. Rinret Silvanus Lott has that story.
All through the week, the police, who are in charge of securing citizens and the election process, have been busy, especially with returning sensitive materials back to the CBN amidst high security. This, the police boss says, is part of measures to secure the state all through the election process.
They know what is expected of them, because we have briefed them on what is expected of them. To be as professional as possible in discharging their job and their responsibility, they have to be civil to the members of the public, but at the same time they have to be firm in doing their job, and that if offense is seen being committed in their presence, they should not be afraid. Men have no duty getting close to the boxes. Not boxes, but they will just be around there to provide security.
The CP further cautioned politicians to advise their supporters not to be unruly in their conduct. A drive round the city center, its environs and some collation centers witnessed the presence of security men in their designated positions, with people going about their normal activities. Residents, on the other hand, share their optimism that all will go well on the election day.
I'm excited, and I have my PVC. I will come out to vote tomorrow, and I urge other Nigerians to come out and vote.
I'm sure they are already prepared and they know what to do.
With the postponement of the election, I think it has discouraged a lot of people to vote, but we are hoping for the best.
The watchword is for everyone to conduct themselves well and vote for their preferred candidates. In Jos, Rinret Silvanus Lott, NTA News.
Yes, now let's look at the security of your equipment and of your offices. That's INEC offices, both in the local government areas and in the headquarters. How secure are these materials and your offices in the various local government areas?
Well, these materials are secured. We have good collaboration with the security personnel in Plateau here. We've been holding a series of meetings with the security. You know, we have ISIS. The chairman is the Commissioner of Police, and while the co-chairman is the resident electoral commissioner. I can tell you that Plateau is one area where we have had not less than 6-7 meetings in the last few weeks, and the assurance, we've had the assurance. In fact, all the security operatives had to work together. They brought their team together, and then they distributed them accordingly. as we speak, even the ROAs and all that, the registration area centers, the local government area offices are well fortified with the security. If you go to the Miango Road office of the INEC, you find out that there are a lot of people there, different set of security, civil defense corps, the police, and all that. And so we're not scared. We're not afraid, because we know that based on the level of interaction and the level of meetings with the stakeholders, our materials are well secured. And we need to talk to people that say, just go out there. Nobody will embarrass them. But as regards those areas that you spoke about, that he spoke about earlier in the day, we are aware of that. And the ISIS, members of the ISIS are aware of those flashpoints. And they've taken cognizance of that, and they've made arrangements to ensure that nothing happens.
You are used to that acronym in
Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security. Okay. We've been holding series of meetings, and we've had to even hold meetings even with the youths. We have had to hold meetings even with the other stakeholders. Just a day after the meeting, the postponement of the election, we had a meeting that involved everybody that was held at the officers' mess, and the ground rules. They were giving everything, and then we have gone on air to let people know. Just today, this evening, the PPRO and myself were in one of the radio stations where even questions that came about this flashpoint, we were able to trash them out. But I'm very, very certain that with what we have done, the kind of rules, ground rules that we have laid, and the kind of relationship we have had with the stakeholders, I'm very certain that everything will go well.
Now, on the Nigerian Television Authority, the network centers are hubs for neighboring states, and Jos is a hub for some neighboring states. Luckily, Issa drove in here from Gombe, and he can talk to us about the feelings along that axis, Gombe, Bauchi, and Jos.
Yeah, Gombe and Bauchi are much ready also to have the election. And then if you look at the system well, you will see that actually Bauchi and Gombe have not been so much a troubling area when it comes to election. But then there is much of voter education there, and people there are willing to come out and cast their votes. And then if there is anything the people may be scared of a little bit, is about some of the issues about security of ballot boxes and so on and so forth. But then a lot of education have been going on, a lot of advices have been going on. They have been advised, the youth most especially, that they shouldn't go and snatch ballot boxes. They shouldn't do anything that is capable of truncating the ease of the election. And then they should do everything within their own possibilities to make sure that governments they want to vote in have come into power, because they can only do that through exercising their own franchise, voting the people they want to vote, and then peacefully without taking any other person's right for when they are doing the election. So political parties, elders, community elders, NGOs sometimes, and then
it's nice to hear the involvement of all these people.
All these stakeholders, they have been really coming out. Sometimes even traditional rulers will come out and make public pronouncements that elections should take place peacefully. And from all we've been observing, I don't think there is any cause for alarm as far as the preparation and then the mood is concerned.
Okay, Saturday's election, we've been talking more about the presidential election, but there is the National Assembly election, 3 senatorial seats district in Plateau, and 8 federal constituencies. These materials move at the same time.
All the materials, we moved all the materials from the central bank to the local government areas on Wednesday, and as we speak, all the materials, result sheet, ballot papers, and everything, they are all at the various rack centers, and they've been bashed into even the polling unit by polling unit. So by 7 o'clock in the morning, most of those centers will be open, but voting will start at 8.
How many ballot papers will a voter get?
Well, you're going to get one. You get one for the presidential. Yes. You get one for the Senate. You get one for the House of Reps. Okay. And come to think of it, these numbers they're huge. Okay. And but one thing again we want to say is we try to discourage underage voters, because it's a very serious situation, and the police commissioner had insisted, just like what was said today, if you are underage, don't get close to the polling units. We need to re-emphasize that, because that is one area that might likely bring about challenges, because you get to polling units, you see a 14-year-old person, you strap a baby at the back, and you tell the person that this person is 18 and all that, and the child will tell you.
If somebody is, from your view, underage, but he has a PVC, what do you do to that kind of person?
I think he should be disqualified. But the case is,
what would you do?
Yeah, certainly. We in previous elections we harvest those cards from them. We just tell them to go out of the line, but then you find out that the major challenge is that even the people within the environment. We insist. Some of them will tell you, "Do you know when I gave birth to this child?" Or in this environment they have stunted growth, and people appropriate stunted growth because they want to use this thing, and then it has implication for these children. A child that you register somebody at the age of 14, and then once this data are being, is going to be harmonized eventually, if what the government is doing is anything to go by, and a child that maybe you registered a child at 14 and the person is 14 and claims to be 18, what it means is that if he goes into the system, he will retire from the service before the normal years that he ought to leave. Okay. And so the people who forced him or encourage such a child to register at that period will not be alive to protect him or her. So we want to use the opportunity to discourage such things happening and let the parents know the implication of this, and let the politicians who are in that environment not challenge once such a child is identified by the officials and then asked to leave the queue. We need to admonish this the parents or politicians around to discourage, so that they don't challenge the people who are trying to take these guys out of the queue.
Thank you very much on that note, which we hope will help to sanitize the election process. We want to thank Isa Abdullahi for coming to the studio, and Osarity for spending your time.
Thank you very much.
We'll be up again.
I'm back to the office.
Straight now. So thank you, and that's how it has been for the day from the Plateau State Capital, Jos, and we'll just hang around again and see what happens at the early part of the day tomorrow, and we'll certainly be available to show you what the voting process has been like, is going to be like. Thank you for joining us. Ominiode, over to you.
Thank you, Femi. Well, you see, across Nigeria is the same spirit. Everybody's excited. Plateau State, just what we just saw from Jos there, it's the same story everywhere. But fundamentally, before we take a phone call that is pending, one of the guests from Jos raised a fundamental issue here: underage voters and electoral fraud. Some persons have suddenly forgotten that underage voting is also part of criminality during election. So what can you say to this, besides just ballot box snatching?
Well, underage voting is I don't like to call it. I've had difficulties calling anything that has to do with crimes committed during election offense. I've been having difficulty doing that. It's a crime during election because it perverts the process. But we need to also deal with issues around the clash of election culture. Because many times what happens is that people don't know which of the elections they refer to when they talk about underage voting. Elections conducted by state independent electoral commissions do not have process. There are no processes involved in it. So what it means is that underage people could line up and be allowed to vote in such elections. In many instances, people take pictures of those things and apply them to mean that it happened during INEC organized elections. That does not mean that it is not far in between, but you do not, INEC organized elections, you will not have that kind of brazen, engagement of underage voters in elections.
Okay, that now leads us to take this report from Asaba Delta State, which says that as the clock ticks towards the election tomorrow, community leaders have been advising electorates there to conduct themselves in a peaceful manner. Let's join Tessie Coker in Asaba.
Ahead of tomorrow's election, the religious leaders and other citizens are advising electorate to be calm, take it coolly, go there and vote wisely for the candidates of your choice. That is what they are telling us. And I have with me here the Imam of Federal College Technical Mosque, Alhaji Adekola Yenusa.
My words for every electorate is that every electorate must go out and vote for the candidate of his or her choice without rancor, without violence, and without any iota of trouble.
Well, my word to the electorate is that they should be conscious of, number one, the environment, number two, following the right process to see to the fact that everything is done orderly. So I will advise them not to bring in sentiment into tomorrow's election. They should allow the people to vote according to their conscience.
We've heard from the good citizens of Nigeria encouraging voters to go out there and cast their ballots without fear, since the federal government has assured citizens of adequate security during and after the election. So Nasaba, Tessie Coker, NTA News.
Thank you so much, Tessie. Back here, but before then, let's take this call. Adamu Sambo from Daura, Katsina State is standing by to a phone call to give us an update of what the situation is in Daura. Hello, Adamu.
All I can tell you now is that everything is set here in Daura for the 0 hour. Daura, as you know, is the ancestral home of President Muhammadu Buhari. The enthusiasm is high amongst the people. Everyone is waiting for Saturday to exercise his or her civic rights. This was further heightened when the Nigerian leader arrived here from Abuja alongside his wife and other members of the first family. As you must have heard in the news, President Muhammadu Buhari is in high spirit. So are the people of this ancient town, if you like, his kith and kin, who not only love, respect, but virtually adore him. Indeed, for obvious reasons, they are well pleased with the Nigerian leader. And I can tell you that, as expected, security is very much enhanced across the town. So President Muhammadu Buhari is expected to be at his polling unit situated about 3 to 4 kilometers away from his residence at about 8 o'clock in the morning to exercise his franchise. It is in Sarkin Yara ward in the heart of Daura near the Emir's Palace. The ward has about 15 polling units. His own is Kofar Baru, unit 003. And that is where the president, his wife, and members of his family are expected to elect candidates of their choice in both the presidential and National Assembly elections.
Okay, Adamu, besides the presence of Mr. President and his family for the elections tomorrow, what is the general atmosphere like?
If you are hearing me, the Kofar Baru has about 889 registered voters in Sarkin Yara ward, Sarkin Yara A ward. Sarkin Yara A ward has for 15 polling units. It has a total registered voters of 9,242. This is where President Muhammadu Buhari has been voting since joining partisan politics in 2003. And this is where he is expected to vote on Saturday for the candidates of his choice in both the presidential and National Assembly elections.
Thank you so much, Adamu. Well, let me stay on Jide now. Before you came, he has sustained one line of thought that this is one area in terms of human rights that cuts across from the president. Everybody, you have just one vote. You won't say because it's Mr. President or he's a senator, he has 2 votes or 3 votes, 1 vote. So imagine that Mr. President is back home to vote, the governors are back home, everybody is back home, and all Nigerians tomorrow are going to exercise one civic responsibility, just one vote.
Yeah, that's the beauty of democracy. One man, one vote. One woman, one vote. One student, one vote. Equality before the law. You see, when we say people should troop out and vote, there is, I mean, in terms of job or employment, you have seniors, you have juniors. Like my guy here now, if I were to be working under him, our salaries will never be equal because he's my superior. But when it comes to election, a president has one vote. They won't say because he's #1 citizen, let's appropriate maybe 10,000 votes for him because of his status. There is no status in election. Even if the chief returning officer, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, had to vote, he will only have one vote. But you know, those who brought democracy to us did that deliberately because we are talking about representative government. Representative in the sense that the system gives fair chance to everyone to participate in the election, in the selection of who governs them. So you as a candidate has one vote. I as an electorate or a voter has one vote. Okay. But the aggregation of our votes...
Let me just hold you there, please. There is this call coming in from Yola, Adamawa State. Ladi Bala. Hello, Ladi. If you can hear us, go ahead. You're on to Nigerian Desire Studio.
Hello.
In Abuja.
Hello, sir.
Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. The PDP presidential candidate is already in Yola, and he's in high spirit. By the grace of God, he will be voting at a polling unit not too far from his residence.
Wow.
The former vice president and PDP presidential hopeful will be voting at 0012 polling units of Abuja Ward, Yola North local government, area of Adamawa State, northeastern Nigeria. The former vice president has been voting at this particular polling unit since his political career began.
So besides the information you're giving us, what is the general atmosphere?
Yola North has a total number of registered voters of... Yes, sir.
Well,
the general atmosphere in Adamawa State is calm, peaceful, and the people are in high spirit. They're excited, looking forward to tomorrow to cast their ballots.
Thank you very much, Ladi. Thank you. Well, you see, there's this flow. In the spiritual realm, they say there's a flow. About everybody's excited, no disenchantment, and just a joke somewhere on social media that just came and said, INEC, I will not go to sleep because if I go to sleep, you will postpone the election. Just a joke. From Lagos, somebody said, I must vote. The other one said, I'm very, very hot to vote. What do you make of this? Unlike before where people are apathetic, I won't go, I'll go. But this one, everybody appeared very, very ready for tomorrow.
Yes, I think there's a lot of enthusiasm. People are beginning to believe that their votes will make some difference. There are many reasons for that, but the good thing is that Nigerians are embracing the democratic process a lot more than they have ever been in the country. I think it has something to do with the improvements in the process that engenders that belief that, yes, when I go out, my vote will make a difference. And I hope that that passion, that enthusiasm will take us through the elections tomorrow, and the results of that process will be accepted by Nigerians, because people have to understand that, yes, you have strong feelings about participating, but not everybody might embrace your candidate or his or her ideas. So there are 73 candidates for the presidential election and a host of others for the National Assembly, consisting of the Senate and the House of Representatives. So since we have embraced voting, we should also embrace the other tenets of democracy. We should also embrace the fact that the majority will have their say, and this is who the majority vote for that meets the requirements, all other requirements that will be returned as a leader. But the beauty of it all is that if the person does not perform well in another few years, you still have another opportunity of either showing acceptance or rejecting the candidates that have shown up. So it has to be that faith, that belief, and the sustenance of the system, not just the passion for the night or the passion of the moment.
Does this prove that the electoral or democratic culture in Nigeria is really a build-up and work in progress?
Yeah.
Why I asked you these questions years back, on election day, you hear all kinds of discordant tunes. But today we have one same spirit, one same readiness, and you can say vote. People now believe that their votes will count.
No, I've been making the point that if we added 14 million voters into our voter register, that is phenomenal. And it makes a lie of this whole thing about, you know, people, you hear people say, oh, they are not interested, there's apathy. You hear people, because the conversation around apathy in Nigeria is unsigned, is unstatistical. Nobody sits down and tell you, it just says, what evidence-based issue is that 14 million new people got into your register. Out of that, we had 69 million in 2015, and 72 million now will be going out to vote. That's huge. That's phenomenal. That's interesting. So for me, really, is to say that election is improving. And I make joke around my colleagues. I say one of the twin game changers, the PVC and the smart card reader, is had already taken the initiative. First, they add magnifying glass for persons with albinism. 2, there's a brave ballot. For the first time, I mean, at the general election level, they introduced that in Osun, where for the visually impaired, there is now brave ballot for those who can use it. Apart from that, there is also IDP voting is going to be taking place in 15 states. That is huge. Now, from 2014, September, there is already a gender policy in the commission.
When we come back from our next center, that is Enugu, I'll sustain this. Ifeanyi is standing by, and if you can hear me, Ifeanyi, everywhere we have been to, we've been to Lagos, we've been to Jos, and a few other places, we have gotten calls from Daura, Katsina State, where Mr. President will be voting tomorrow. We also have gotten calls from Adamawa, where the PDP presidential candidate will be voting tomorrow. What's the excitement like in Enugu and environs?
The Enugu Network Center here. The excitement here is quite feelable, it's palpable. Everywhere from Abia, from Enugu, as well as other zones, it's quite interesting. But I have with me here Comrade Igbokwe, Chukuma Igbokwe. He is a public affairs analyst, and is here to tell us more on the preparations for the 2019 general elections. Comrade Igbokwe, you're welcome to the Nigeria Decides studio.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now, Comrade, INEC has indeed confirmed that it is ready for the 2019 general elections. Do you envisage any logistic problems here in the southeast?
Well, we have followed the INEC distribution of both sensitive and non-sensitive material. I agree that we are coming out from the shock of what happened last Saturday. And after that, the INEC chairman addressed the whole nation and gave us the promise that he will continue to update us.
And in the southeast also, we have followed that as of this today, we are aware that materials have moved to the racks. And that shows that by tomorrow morning, it will move to the polling booths. We are not envisaging, because in southeast also, we have a good topography, and most of the roads are now been done in not quite a long time. So we are not envisaging, quite accessible. So we are not envisaging a very serious logistic challenge.
Okay, now, Comrade, what is your impression of the steps that have been taken by INEC to ensure that it keeps to its mandate and deliver credible elections, averting what would have been the staggered elections had it held last Saturday?
I want to tell you that after the previous address last Saturday, we were not too sure. In fact, what was going on people's mind is that, are you sure this election will hold? Are you sure this election will hold? And let me tell you, when the postponement came, people received it with mixed feelings. In fact, there was this feeling that there is what do I call it? There is a sabotage. But gradually, from the up to day-to-day briefing from INEC and what we are seeing them doing, both in the state and even following the report coming from all the states, I think we have we are beginning to restore confidence back to the INEC chairman. Not even given that a lot of court cases, a lot of issues, a lot of petitions, and he gave us 1 week, and within just before the 1 week, we are seeing signs in collaboration with other security agents and other stakeholders. We are seeing very high sign that they are ready for not just any election, but credible and fair election. Yes, the postponement came, but we are also of the opinion that we are skeptical when even they say 1 week. But some of us were of the opinion that even if it would take 3 weeks or 1 month, but let's get it right. Because there's no need going into election, and at the end of the day, that election is still nullified, and we return back to the drawing board. So let us spend the time and get it right. And for what we are seeing from INEC now, I think they are ready to get it right.
Yeah, talking about getting it right, concerning the role of INEC, specifically, which area do you see great improvements? Where has it actually stepped up when you look at the 2019 elections to previous elections that it has organized?
Well, since after 2015, we witnessed voters apathy, mainly in the southeast. In fact, we recorded below 50, almost 50%, in the southeast. But what we are seeing now is that people now have confidence in INEC. From the process of collecting PVC, from the process of registering for PVC and collection of PVC, to the extent that there is this feeling that the electoral umpire is not biased. And again, we have seen how they have made a series of adjustments, both in providing materials, both in ad hoc staffs, and all other logistics. So we are saying that what we are seeing now is better than what we saw in 20 years.
It's quite encouraging.
It's quite encouraging.
Okay, now we'll just take a report, and then we'll come back to our discussions with Comrade Igbokwe here. Now, Nigerians have been charged to go out and cast their ballots for peaceful and successful election that will bring about good governance and peace. Ijoma Ogweke sought the opinion of key players in Enugu on the need for peaceful election.
Despite last Saturday's rescheduling of the elections, key players and the residents of Enugu State understand the power of election, and going to the polls is a sure way to exercise that power.
It is important that a lot of money has been put into this election and must not allow it to be wasted. We must guard and protect this present election by maintaining peace, by maintaining order. There should be no electoral malpractices. Even with the INEC, they must make sure that the people's will prevail.
Their opinion. Leadership is not forced. Leadership is a choice made by the people themselves. And it is our duty to be able to know that leadership is service. And if it is service, why should we kill, maim, and fight? Because we want to serve people. So I will urge all the politicians to please ensure that they conduct themselves peacefully and that they accept the votes once it is transparent.
Everybody has to be very peaceful. We don't play into the hands of security agents. Cast your vote, sit down quietly. At the end of the day,
have also made adequate arrangements for the protection of lives and property throughout the period of elections and beyond.
Just and police to be parading along the streets with their vans, demonstrating their strength, is terrifying to the people. I don't think that that is needed at this time, because this is election eve. We need peaceful environment. We don't need anything that will cause tension around.
To everybody, vote for your conscience. Vote for future life of citizens of this little microcosm known as Nigeria.
They, however, appeal to political parties to respect the peace accord and shun all forms of electoral fraud. In Enugu, Ijomu Gweke, NTA News.
Now, we just heard from the stakeholders there. We still have with us Comrade Igbokwe, Chukwuma Igbokwe, a public affairs analyst. Now, you just heard from the stakeholders there. Now, what role actually would you expect from political parties and, in fact, the candidates to ensure that this election is actually violence-free?
Well, I think a lot has been done in that aspect. Political parties have sensitized, their members. But like in this area, people vote along party line. People tend to go along, the party in their states and so on. But the political parties have done a lot of mobilization. The churches have also done a lot of mobilization. That people should come out, not just coming out, because after 2015, it became clear that our vote now counts. Because before 2015, we have this attitude down here that, what are you coming for? They have taken their decision. But after 2015, and in this era of vote buying or vote trading, whatever you call it, where people will come and beg you to buy your PVC, which means there is power in the PVC. So people are now sensitized to come out en masse and vote. And we are saying that we don't want to cause trouble, because INEC also have the power to cancel election. At any place there is crisis. So you don't have to cause crisis for that election to be cancelled. So political parties are making sure that wherever their people are, to restrict, minimize violence there, so that when they get victory there, it will be, very straight for them.
Now, you just talked about this issue of vote buying. Now, would you say that the electorate have been sufficiently educated on good conduct during elections?
Yes, we have done that. Various groups, NGO have done that. Like I mentioned, the churches, I mentioned even political parties. Because when you sell your vote, you don't only sell your future. You are selling the future of your children, and you are selling the future of the generation yet unborn. And we are saying that this is the time for us to come and get it right. This is the time for us to get a better Nigeria. That one, there is no need for violence. There is no need to sell your vote. Come out. Be prepared. Don't be distracted. Don't let anything distract you. Have patience and wait for the time you vote. And also stay there and let the result be counted and announced. Then you go back.
And now, talking about the need to avert violence, what are your expectations in terms of security?
Well, from what the address we have had, various, as of today, all the security agents in the states, they are meeting and they have given us the assurance. Well, let me say, for instance, I know there are 1 or 2 flashpoints in the southeast. But I know for Enugu, for instance, is always more of a, we don't really have violence in Enugu during election. But I know we have flashpoint, probably like Anambra and Imo, where we have political gladiators are, just trying to blow up the political tension, because of interest of the big political gladiators there. But Enugu, we don't normally have issue, we don't normally have crisis. And I'm assuring, from what they have done and from the sensitization gone, I want to believe that we will not have violence around this area.
In this area.
Yes.
Now again, there's let us look at the role of the social media, which has been known sometimes to jump the gun. Now, what is your advice in this regard?
Well, my advice is that people verify any information. Look at what is happening around you. It's easy for somebody to use fake news, to stir up crisis. It's easy for somebody to use fake news, to bring up heat over the policy. But around you, find out what is happening around you. If you get any news, verify it. Concentrate on what is happening around you. Don't, receive information from social media, unverified information, and you start using it. It's easy these days for you to hear that somebody is killed along the road when the person is quietly sitting in his home. You understand? And before you know it, people have already started doing a reprisal attack when nothing happened. So we encourage our people not to, anytime, any news you get from the social media, verify it. Every news will be verifiable.
Okay, I want to thank you, Comrade Ibokwe, Chukuma Ibokwe, Public Affairs Analyst. But we're not done yet. Before we go, we have another report. Now, to ensure that people move to their respective polling centers to exercise their franchise, some transport operators have reduced transport fare to various destinations. Now let's have Ijoma Ugweke, who monitored the situation in Enugu and filed in the report.
As the people grapple with the cost of traveling from one end to the other to cast their ballots for candidates of their choice, some transport operators in Enugu have reduced transport fares to enable people travel and to ensure that the nation succeeds in the general elections.
It's only, the price is fine. It's only 1.5.
It's cheap. It's okay. 2,000 naira. From Benin to Enugu.
It was fine. It was okay. It's 2,000 naira.
It was fine. I think 2,000 naira.
Some places like Benin, which travelers paid 2,500, is now 2,000. Kogi State, which cost up to 2,000, is now 1,500, and Ogoja, 1,500, among others. They commended the federal and state governments for steps taken so far to ensure that the elections are free, fair, and credible. In Enugu, Ijomu Gweke, NTA News.
And that's it from the Enugu Network Center. I'm handing back to Ominio there in Abuja. Thank you so much.
Much Ifan Yokafo for giving us perspective from Enugu. And back in Abuja, before we take a report, let me go to Osazozi because after that report, Osazozi will be leaving for other engagements. God is their day and they have to do a few other things. Now there's this post going round that if tomorrow you are a prospective voter, if you see a particular stamp with a particular date on your ballot, you should not vote. What is it all about?
Well,
is that information correct? First of all,
we don't really know the source, and I don't know what it's all about. But what I can say is that the ballot papers to be used are being distributed now, and they will go to the polling units first thing tomorrow morning. And if I may just quickly go through the steps, when you get to the polling unit, your card will be checked to see if you're in the correct polling unit. Then the card will be used by another official to ascertain that, to read your biometrics, and also to ascertain that the card was actually an INEC-issued card. So it reads the chip, embedded chip inside the card, and then brings out your bio data, and you check with your, they will check your fingerprints on it and everything else. Now, when you pass those tests, you now go on to the third official who will tear the ballot paper from the booklet, and he's required to turn it to the back, stamp it, sign it, and endorse a date. That is the date of the election on it. That is actually what validates the ballot paper. So ballot paper simplicity just by itself is not actually valid. Even if it's not stamped, then it will not be counted, even if it's retrieved from the ballot box after it has been cast. So that's an invalid ballot if it's not stamped, signed, and endorsed with a date by the official. So there's no talk of any pre-stamped ballot paper.
So there's nothing like a pre-stamped ballot paper?
There's nothing like that.
So now, given the people, the stages you have mentioned now,
yes,
are there time sequence allocated in terms of timing? Because imagine you have a long line of electorate in a particular polling booth.
Yes.
How do you manage it?
Well, first of all, there's elasticity in terms of timing. So you can go to the polling unit at 8 in the morning or get there before then, and when it opens at 8, cast your vote. Or you can go there at 10 o'clock or 12 o'clock. It's not like before, not like in 2015, where you had to come within specific hours in the morning to get accredited, and then you go back and come back. No. Now you just accredit and you vote, what we call continuous accreditation and voting. So it can take, some people can take 2-3 minutes for the whole process. Others might take longer when you have to explain things to them. For example, the presiding officer is required to do a little bit of voter education to show you, for example, how to fold the ballot paper and flatten it when you want to cast your vote. And some people might require explanations. So, and in other cases, for some others, it might take a little longer for the biometrics to be read by the card reader. So on average, we think between 2 and 4 minutes, that should be enough to get a voter through the process.
Before I let you go after the report,
Yes.
what last words do you have for the electorate tomorrow as an official from the Independent National Electoral Commission?
Basically that your votes will count, and ensure that you just do the right thing, obey the directives. If you decide to stay after casting your votes, by all means, you're welcome. But just stay a respectable distance, obey the presiding officials, the NEC officials, and don't cause any trouble. Just remain as silent as possible. The agents are there to protect the agents of the political parties. Ensure that you comport yourself in a proper manner. Your votes will count.
I imagine that you're chatting with some observers who are already here, CSOs, all that, and you may be meeting tomorrow, and you may also be passing some kind of message through them to their colleagues. They are also watching you. What do you tell them?
Well,
the CEO,
I think
the CSOs, the observers.
Well, those on this table are very well experienced, so I need not tell them much. Quite honestly, they've been our partners for many years. They've been through good times and not so good times with us, and they have a good grasp of the process. But I wish I could say that for everybody, and I think that we appeal both domestic and international observers to keep to the code of conduct for them, report faithfully what you have seen, and please guard against infiltrators, people who want to, charlatans basically, taking advantage of the freedom given to observers to go anywhere they want to and to observe the process.
Let me sound like a reflector here.
Yes.
Now, Osaze will be leaving us in a few minutes. Imagine he's here, and maybe some kind of observation you have made in the last few minutes. We went to Lagos, Makurdi, Enugu, and Jos. Maybe you feel you want to pass on a message through him to the INEC institution where he's going to now. What will you be telling INEC? Let me start with you.
I have access to Mr. Sazeuzi, so I don't need the television to pass my message to him. But basically, is to say that the situation that we had was like you lost the first match in a league competition. The natural consequence of that will be that fans will be asking for the head of the coach. But if you win the second match and win it convincingly, people will not remember you lost a match. So tomorrow, all of us supporting INEC, because that's very important, and I think we all as stakeholders must support INEC to deliver a good election tomorrow. So it's not just the business of INEC to do that, all of us supporting to make sure that they deliver good election to all of us.
Jide?
For me, I would say, through him, proper oversight of ad hoc staff is needful. I know there will be monitors going around to see what's going on, because whatever those ad hoc staff does is being done in the name of the commission. And, people don't want to know who is a permanent staff, who is a copper, who is working for the commission. And don't also forget, we are having 1 million, approximately 1 million ad hoc staff that are not permanent staff of the commission. And no matter the kind of training and retraining Because when we went out this morning, there were a few issues about maybe those who participated in the training last week couldn't find their name today, and they are hanging around to see whether some people will come and not come. That, the veracity of that is not what I mean, until when we see what plays out tomorrow. But for me, I know from time past that many a time, either error of omission or commission from these ad hoc staff who are not very nuanced and experienced in act of election administration can lead to a lot of doubts and challenges. Because I mean, if you are a permanent staff, you've done 2-3 elections, you will have grasped within very short time the new changes. But somebody who is just from the university, who is made a presiding officer, who possibly haven't read the regulations and guidelines to keep abreast of what the new regulation says, may be challenged in terms of interpretation and understanding and conduct. But beyond that, I think what we saw during our pre-election outing was the commission is good to go.
Okay. Well, Mr. Zay, let me say, by the time we come back after the report I'm going to call now, you would have left us. Thanks for being with us on the Nigerian Defense Studio, and we hope to have you maybe sometime tomorrow.
Thank you for having me.
It's a countdown already.
It will be my pleasure.
Now, there's something about gender during elections, and this report by Miriam Emeka Amadi is all about gender and election, watching, monitoring women participation in election. How will it be with the 2019 elections?
Nigeria has been experiencing low participation of women in both elective and appointive positions. That's what prompted the Situation Room, Gender and Election Watch, an initiative of Nigerian Women Trust Fund aimed at observing and analyzing the participation of women in election compared to men. Apart from encouraging women to vote, Gender and Election Watch also publishes gender analysis reports for policy making.
The Gender and Election Watch initiative is not just an election day initiative. It's also something that has been in place before the election, and after the election we'll be doing the analysis that will be a basis for informing policy advocacy and for also academic reference points that people can look back and see how women fared compared to men during the elections.
Gender and Election Watch is condemning in strong terms all forms of intimidation and violence against women in Saturday's election. Miriam Emeka Amadi, NTA News.
Yes, we're back here now, and let me start with Jide. We talked about carrying everybody along before we went to Enugu, then had Osaze conclude his beat. And now, previous elections are now tied to evolving democratic culture in Nigeria.
You know, as I was explaining before we went on that break, a number of things have changed in terms of inclusivity of specialized interest groups in the electoral process. You know, it used to be only Section 56 of the Electoral Act, which says INEC may provide braille ballots, tactile ballots, INEC may provide assistive ballots and all of that. Now it has moved, even though that is still the operational word in the Electoral Act, the Commission has moved from that to even have a policy framework, access framework for persons with disability. In this election, what you will see tomorrow is that there is a separate queue even for persons with disabilities. So even before the president assented to the disability bill, the Commission has already taken the initiative of inclusivity. And we have 27 million plus persons with disability. Now their interest is being catered for. Now we are having brave ballots. We are having voting day instructions for the deaf and the people with hearing impairment. And that is getting them to be part of the electoral process. Now, the youth, you know much about that. The Not Too Young to Run, which Yaga Africa took the lead to mobilize support and ensure that we have age reduction to enable more youth to participate in politics. And if you look at the dynamics now, we have a lot of aspirants who are youth. Of course, there is a flip side of that, which is the nomination forms and the cost of running campaigns, which actually didn't make the lowering of age to be of much positive, to rub off positively in terms of the number, exponential number of youth that will participate. But be that as it may, you find out that there are 3 pillars that are working. For the persons with disability I mentioned earlier on, INEC has even started from, I think, Ekiti or Anambra to accredit persons with disability organization, disability persons organization, they call it DPO. Disability persons organization are now being accredited not as part of TMG or as part of any other plaque or situation rule, but as individual organizations that are now deploying their own persons, physically challenged persons like themselves, to go and observe. Now we also have monitoring on gender basis. I'm part of the Nigerian Women Trust Fund team, and they are observing this election from the gender perspective. What is the voter turnout of women? What is the gender configuration of poll workers? What is the gender configuration of journalists, accredited journalists? What is the gender configuration of security agencies that are deployed? And that is because the Commission is now opening up the space to ensure that these different specialized interest groups are carried along, not only in terms of even having an accessibility framework for them, but in making sure that they now have their own accredited status to go observe proceedings and report, frankly, to the Commission. So I talked earlier on about people in IDPs, internally displaced persons. You know, in 2015, the Commission for the first time allowed IDP to vote, but they have fine-tuned the policy framework to now ensure that there is a better credible criteria for IDPs to vote, particularly in the presidential or national elections. And what you see is that in 15 states, across 15 states where we have IDP camps, they are going to vote. And that is inclusivity. Gender, like I said, INEC has made it consciously. You see in the last 2 secretaries of the electoral management body, INEC, are female. Where it's like training now, where the chairman is a man, the secretary, Mrs. Augusta Ogaku was the first. She was the first female secretary of the commission. Now the current one, Chief Mrs. Rose Oriaron, is also a female. So we have the chairman, male, we have the secretary of the commission, female. And by the gender policy of the commission, if you are going to have 5 poll workers in a unit, 2 out of those 5 will be female, 3 will be male. Yeah. So that is inclusivity to ensure that no one is left behind in the electoral process.
Let me quickly say this. By the time now, if you look at the time, we're already into
0 hours come.
So it's a countdown in minutes, a countdown in seconds, a countdown in hours, meaning people who are awake watching us, either they are prepared, either breakfast, going to catch a sleep, to prepare to go to their various voting points tomorrow. Let me take this question to now. It's a countdown already. Before I get to that, do you think something should be done regarding people like me and a few others who somehow, by dint of their professional calling, their engagements tomorrow, may not be today able to vote?
Well, the response to that is what happens.
Hope you understand my point now. Journalists,
I understand.
medical workers,
even security agencies,
all that.
Yeah, I understand the point. So you are dealing with early voting, which our counterparts in Ghana enjoy, for instance, and in many other climes where election workers, journalists, civil society organizations who are observing elections vote earlier. But what we need to deal with is the trust issue in our country. The trust deficit is a very strong impediment to some of those things. In Ghana, for instance, the list of journalists who will be working on election day is submitted earlier on to the EMB, the Electoral Management Body in Ghana, and then an arrangement is made for those people to vote, say, on a Wednesday or a Thursday before the day of election. But, you know, we have to keep building this process. But that's one arm of the conversation. The other arm of the conversation is the sacrifice that is required for you to make in also ensuring that this process goes well, and the oversight responsibility that we all provide. And one of the simple ways that I used to describe that is that you are a security agent, for instance, and you are a deacon in your church, or you are a pastor. Okay, or let's say you are a deacon in your church, and there is information that your church may come under attack. As a deacon, you are not going to worship that very Sunday. You have to, if you're a security agent, you would have to mount guard and ensure that, you know, you repel the attack. So we really have become a vanguard for democracy in our country, those of us who provide this level of services. And we can see it from that perspective, why we continue to work, you know, to join children of light in other climes who enjoy these privileges that we can't enjoy in our own country because of issues around trust. If you, the whole drama that we do around elections, in Ghana, for instance, that I keep referring to, election officials take electoral materials to their homes and bring it out on election day. If you do that in Nigeria, they will just go and, you understand? So we need to, generally, some of the real issues, cost issues that we bring into our elections, we do face cap for observers, we do T-shirts, you know, sometimes we even provide bags that there is nothing inside, you know, really. So after this election, a bigger reform conversation, and that is one big issue that we saw in between this election. There were no real significant reform issues that we brought to the table before the election. You understand? After this election, we have to engender a conversation and look at our election generally and see whether there are things that we can do to move it a notch further than where it is now. And part of that will be providing early voting for people like the people you talked about, journalists, security agents, and observers who may, because of the particular work that they do, will not be able to vote.
Okay. Now, back to Jide. The explanations have been offered, convictions have been made, persuasions have been made. Mr. President, in his broadcast yesterday to all Nigerians, being the father of the nation, sustained the position that people should go out, tolerate each other, and vote in a peaceful manner. There's a likelihood that some persons who just, there are people you call impossible, who want to do it the way it's not wanted. There's restriction of movement, not a lockdown. And they have told you when to move and when not to move. What word of advice do you have for this category of persons who always believe that it must be done against the directive?
Well, one, we all have a role to play if we are going to have peaceful, successful and credible elections. And one way to enhance and achieve that is to be law-abiding. Law-abiding will suffer some inconvenience, is to ensure that we all enjoy together. Like Ezenwa said, we are paying the price of lack of trust and confidence in the system. I have been privileged to observe elections in a few countries, both Africa and outside. There is no lockdown anywhere. On election day, people go about their normal business. In fact, in Ghana that he referred to, where I was privileged to observe elections.
This has come up severally, but we believe we are building towards it.
We are getting somewhere. You know, I'm talking about trust and confidence, because the whole paraphernalia of shutting down the system, incurring huge losses to the economy and all of that, was because we don't trust the system enough that if there are free movement, people will do the right thing. The whole essence of restricting movement is to avoid violence, thuggery, snatching of ballot boxes and all of that. But look at Ghana, the 2008 Ghana I went to observe. They had their runoff on a Sunday. You heard the INEC chairman saying over the...
He explained all that.
He said they were thinking of moving the election to Sunday, but they considered that it would be too culturally sensitive for some people. So when you factor this, the electorate needs to understand that there is no need arguing with security agencies about, okay, I will go out and nothing is going to happen. If you are restricted, please play by the rule, be law-abiding. And let me quickly speak to part of the reform that needs to happen ahead of 2023 elections. As he mentioned the issue of early voting, there's also the people in diaspora that we seem to be forgetting. They contribute enormously to the economy of Nigeria through the money they send down to their families in Nigeria. But they don't have a say in our electoral process. They are not registered to vote, they are not voting. And there are quite sizable population of Nigeria that are being denied this opportunity. So if Niger, Mali, and some other small countries will have, even if not globally, at least let's start to pilot something of that nature in 2023, so that we are talking of inclusivity. That is part of inclusivity that must happen as part of the build-up to having greater electoral reform.
Okay, let's come to what we have also talked about. I said earlier here that there are some issues you don't overbear, but some, even when you overbear, it looks fresh all
Repetition is the law of lasting impression.
Beautiful. Now, vote buying, vote selling.
You know, these
messages have come out, caution, all about. Let's talk about it. Vote buying, vote selling.
Omini, vote buying, vote selling, trading. The deleterious consequence of that is, for me, is what it does. The first thing it does for me is that it devalues your citizenship. If you transact, I just said that the president has one PVC. Me, I have one PVC. If I sell mine, the value, that value of a quality that you can't get in any other way that you have explained before now.
Yes.
You have devalued it. Your citizenship is devalued. Then secondly, it promotes arrogance for people in power. When they sell or buy, the value in democracy is questioning, is interrogation. If you remove the ability to interrogate in a democracy, it's no longer democracy. So what does that mean? You have elected somebody to the National Assembly. He paid you money to vote for him. Can you ask about the bills that is, what bills in the last 4 years, how many bills did you pass? Your 2,000 naira, 1,000 naira, 3,000 naira has shut you up to be able to make that question. The man will look at you and say, well, what nonsense?
I paid you.
I paid you. So many of us don't understand that infused in this transaction that you have is your inability to say, we don't have good road. We don't have drugs in our dispensaries and hospitals. We don't have, you can't, that is shut up. So the engagement that needs to happen is also to reduce the mindset. There's a mindset issue too. I had the privilege of having a training session with security agents. And I said, one of the biggest problems that we have is the mindset, our attitude to crime. Many of us don't think that vote buying is a crime. The security agents who have responsibility to rein in criminality, that level of criminality themselves don't think is a crime. They think and I've made that point that we nice it up, we deodorize it and say it's offense, you know. And then what have we put in the law? If you buy votes, you have 100,000 naira fine or 2 years, and
12 months imprisonment,
and 12 months imprisonment, and or. When you see and or, meaning that the judge is left with the discretion to decide that you can pay the fine and go, or you can. But if you see bribery, I think is about 5 years imprisonment or 500 something close to 500,000 naira. Okay, now if you commit that crime, there is no and or. So the crafters of the law and those who have responsibility to implement it just think it's a joke. So we need to reevaluate our attitude to crimes in election, which includes this transaction. So I've talked about 3 things that it does. It devalues your citizenship. It promotes arrogance for people in government. They are not able to, you can't hold them accountable. So you see that the next argument you hear everywhere is poverty. And I have said everywhere that I've had the opportunity to say this, that poverty can never explain a crime. If you understand that this is a crime, poverty cannot rationalize it. That the reason you did what you did is because you're poor. And I keep making that point that we cannot deodorize this. We can't give it a different complexion from what it is. Okay. If you are poor, does it give you the right to go and snatch somebody's phone? If you snatch somebody's phone and you are caught, will your plea of poverty free you from the consequences of the crime that you committed? It's the same thing. Until our citizens understand that this is a crime, we will continue to trivialize it and make it as cozy and nice as the laws around it.
Okay, before I go to Jide,
yes.
I remember from what you have said now that when I clocked the age to vote, I felt so excited. Oh, at last I'll become
a voter.
And there was this excitement I had, and this are the class of person who might likely fall prey to this out of excitement, out of being enthused to do this. I know you are speaking generally about the electorate. Can you singular these ones and talk with them? The first-time voters.
The first-time voter.
There's this excitement it comes with. I remember when I was a
first-time voter, 10 times voter, do not commit a crime. And I think me and Jide were in that program together where I was making the point that even those of us in civil society, many times, we say, vote, collect their money, and vote your conscience. You know, we say that, oh, collect their money, vote your conscience. And I asked myself, I said, if you do have a conscience, will you commit a crime? Knowingly commit a crime. So whether you're a first-time voter, it is important that you understand that the law can start working with you. Oh, the law does not work in Nigeria. If you are arrested for vote buying, even if it is the and all that I talk about, you now collect 2,000 naira, you are arrested, and you have to pay 100,000 naira to free yourself, or you go and spend 12 months in prison. It does not make sense. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
Okay, let me progress now. Let's go to the actors. We have spoken to the electorate. Let's go to the actors now. Talking about, let's leave the elites, the actors, the political actors. Tomorrow we have people who will be so agitated. They are on the edge almost all day until the result is out. What message do you have for them?
They need to see politics as a game of sport. It's a sport. And in sports, one has to win, one has to lose. It's like going to the tribunal or court. The two of you will never be, I mean, it's very difficult. Maybe in very rare occasion you have a win-win situation when you go to court. Litigation does not give you room for win-win situation. It's only mediation. You can say, okay.
No, I'm talking from the perspective of, for instance, vote buying, vote selling.
Okay.
In crime, the one who obtains or the one who gives share almost the same.
Of course.
Our politicians are irredeemable. We have already talked to the people who they engage. If that person understands that, look, after all, you have one vote. Why do you want me to sell mine?
Okay.
So the politician will want to cut corners. I always say that the game that we play is a game of ill-gotten advantage. If you get an ill-gotten advantage, fine. The politician is already wired that way. He's working to...
Well, we can unwire them.
No, you see...
But what you're saying, you can unwire them.
No, that's what I'm saying. They are wired. So it is the people who can... And that's the work... Jide is a trainer around these issues. The work that we do all over the place is to tell people that, look, if you say no in my polling unit, in your polling unit, in our polling unit, all of us agree together and say we are not selling our
Form a brick wall.
We form a brick wall. The frustration will happen. What has happened is that institutional rigging is gradually getting off. Okay? What do I mean by institutional rigging? You know a situation in which all you needed to do as a politician was to put your money together, find an EO in INEC who will give you ballot papers, you print it and he brings it back.
Okay, we'll come to this because it's quite interesting, I must say. Why I want to, let's take this report that looks at leaders of thought. Maybe we'll combine that side by side, the actors, to round up our line of thought. Now, in this special report, correspondent Lydia Odige Ochi examines the role of traditional and religious leaders as guides to a peaceful election. The report.
The game of politics is at its climax. Campaigns have come to an end before the general elections. Political parties have put up their best manifestos to garner the interest of the electorate to their advantage. However, religious and traditional rulers have a role to play in ensuring the electoral process is conducted in an atmosphere of peace to achieve fair, successful, and credible elections. The responsibility of religious leaders in building a culture of peace as guides and role models is sacrosanct.
We want to assure Nigeria and all Nigerians, irrespective of religion or tribe, we are at home with each and every one of you. We will continue to go to the extra length, visit you wherever you are, to ensure peace reigns in our country so that we can develop. There can never be development without peace.
John Paul II added or continued the adage of John the 23rd when he says, if you want peace, it's not enough to work for justice, you must also learn to forgive. And why did John Paul II say so? So because if you say until we have full justice in the world before there will be peace, then there will never be full justice in this world. We shall always be fighting.
We need to accept the fact that Nigeria is a multi-ethnic, multicultural, many things that we have. Nigeria is not a mono society. We must appreciate our diversity. And so God is a God of diversity. So if we can see God from the angle of diversity, then we should be celebrating people of various culture and tradition.
We are doing a lot of advocacy. We are doing a lot of preaching. We are sending people all over the place. But the problem is that when you are solving a problem, another one erupts. And so we are already overstretched, in terms of, but we cannot give up. When we are still in the world, we must solve the problem that we meet in the world.
For the rest of my life, it's about peace and peaceful coexistence that I will forever be preaching.
peace and electoral success can be fully accomplished when the wisdom and efforts of religious and traditional leaders who represent the internal concerns of the mind and conscience work cooperatively and respectfully with government officials who have much practical wisdom and worldly experience. Lydia Odije-Ochi, NTA News.
Thank you, Lydia. And that was a report indicating the role of religious leaders, traditional rulers, to cause a peaceful election. Now, we're on this. There came a time, because in a matter of hours, polling will commence all over the country, and by the arrangements so far by the Independent National Electoral Commission, we may not have the trouble of late arrival of materials and other issues that used to play up before now. But we used to hear this before, like we're saying, the actors go commit, when they arrest you, I'll be there. And this also, these are some of the things. It's not just about the electorate. So let's speak to this.
Well, you are very much on point. And the recent opportunity I have to train the security agencies, they highlight this challenge that sometimes when they effect arrest, other comes from abroad to say, it's our boy, you know, just leave him. And that demoralizes them, because what they are trying to do was to be very professional with their work. And for me, these political gladiators or actors, as you call them, needs to realize that they are not helping the society nor the country when they perpetrate crime, whether electoral crime, economic crime, social crime, or any crime for that matter. Yes, it's true that there is no crime-free society, but why must we be in the lead for everything negative? I mean, there are countries with very low crime rate. You talk about the Scandinavian country, you know.
But are we really in the lead?
No, I mean, in terms of when you do, if you do crime index, Nigeria ranks high. And I'm not talking of violent crime alone. When you contextualize, you know there was a time when Nigeria was even the headquarters of kidnapping.
Okay, let's just go to that. Let's go to
so
that.
The issue basically is for the political actors to behave themselves and be a good role model. Election should be about sportsmanship. You win some, you lose some. And I've cited this example over and over again. I know the Oyo State governor, the outgoing Oyo State governor, the outgoing Ogun State governor, after they were previously senators, they tried to be governor in 2003 under the ANPP, All Nigerian People's Party. They lost. They lost in 2007 actually. They lost their gubernatorial ambition. Now, in the lead up to 2011, they decided to join the ACN, All Congress, Action Congress of Nigeria. And by joining in 2011 election, both of them won. Now, what am I drawing out? They lost in 2007, but they won in 2011. Now, the Oyo State governor broke a jinx by winning a re-election in 2015. What does that tell you? The fact that you lose a particular election is not the end of the world for you. Even the incumbent president was becoming our own Abraham Lincoln at some point. In 2003, he contested, lost. In 2007, he contested, lost. In 2011, he contested, lost.
Somehow it's relative.
No. He lost, and by the time he lost in 2011, he swore to high heaven that he's no longer contesting, that he's retiring from any political. But you could see, it took a lot of persuasion to make him contest in 2015. And what happened? Now he won on the 4th attempt. So if he has destroyed the country, if he had engaged in vices and criminality, which country does he want to come and govern now? So he will not. Today he is able to campaign on the mantra of integrity and anti-corruption because everyone can testify largely to his incorruptibility. And that is where it should start. That the fact that because this issue of vote buying that we talk about, we cannot afford to trivialize it because there is an opportunity cost, which is what my brother here was alluding to. The moment you trade with your vote, you cannot turn around to ask for developmental projects because they will tell you, where did you think I got all of that money from? I have to recoup my investment. I've invested heavily in this politics. I must recoup. So your road, your hospitals, your schools, your bridges and all of those infrastructure are kept in view perpetually because they are kept in view pending the time he will recoup enough as to be able to even recontest without having to sell his property.
Okay, let's take on that issue now. Massive mobilization across board. Everybody who is eligible is getting ready about now. Like I said, maybe some are preparing to cook so that they don't go late. Now, at the end of it, with all the preparations, all the meticulous arrangements, you get to the polling booth out of excitement. Something happens. That brings me to void votes. Void votes remains a problem, even with the way INEC has explained how to handle your ballot paper, all that. It could happen even today as people go to vote. How can we avoid it? And could you somehow touch on how it could be handled so that we avoid void votes?
Omini, who benefits from votes? Who is the direct beneficiary of votes?
That's why I asked you the question.
The political parties.
And candidates. Anyway.
And candidates. Jide, there is no name of somebody on the ballot.
It's the party. Yeah.
It's the party that is on ballot. So when they outsource the responsibility of getting votes for their parties, we cannot pamper their indolence. We should not pamper their indolence. Let me tell you, Osun will have ordinarily been decided in the first ballot.
Sure.
It is void votes. The number of void votes in Osun was enough to bring that election to a closure. The political parties will distract attention from their real work. You have people who are engaged as campaign directors. They call them campaign manager.
Yeah.
They share platform with the candidate. Everywhere the candidate is going to, they are introduced. The campaign manager or so and so. The guy's work or the woman's work is to sit down and deliver specific messages that enhances the value of his party. Having said that, citizens should understand that INEC has said that this voting is not indexed, any of the finger is not specific. You can use any of your fingers to vote. Meaning, therefore, that if the index finger is going to run inks around your distance, you can use the one that does not necessarily do that. Then the folding, you had Osaze to tell us that the polling officials are going to also do some bit of voter education by telling the prospective voter how to do that. So it's important that you pay attention. Many times people say, oh, you know, the level of illiteracy. And anytime I hear that, the truth of the matter is that we offend the sensibilities of our people when we make those kind of statements. The people in the backwater communities may understand that better than the professor that you see. Because I have had an occasion in which I was traveling from Akure to Owo, and I saw a professor who was going on election duty. He was stopped by the policeman. The bag he had contained sticker for the car that was going to exempt him from all those He did not even open the bag. He didn't know. He didn't care. If you follow elections in what do you call them, in very metropolitan, cosmopolitan communities and environment, you will find out that those issues are more there than because these people are practicing. Voter education is more. The arrogance of the elite does not even make them open themselves up to be educated, to be told how to. The assumption is that they know. And so when they even find time, so the point is that the political parties should wake up to their responsibility after this time out and ensure that they understand the value of education, voter education. And that voter education, they are the direct beneficiaries. They outsource it, they have completely outsourced it to civil society and INEC. Every time people talk about voter education, they don't even bring the political parties. The assumption is that they are not part of the conversation. Nobody, so they say, oh, INEC must do voter education. Civil society, you are not doing enough voter education. The folks who benefit directly from this education are themselves wringing their hands and discussing, you know, when you see their publicity secretaries, you know, you see them on television, you are expecting them to take the opportunity that these platforms provide to educate their people. But you are going to see them throw banters and all kinds of things, and then all of us too get sucked into that. INEC has programs, radio programs, television programs that are virtually doing all of this. And I thought that political parties will support them, and many of us will begin to show interest in those issues. The national chairman himself, on national television, also showed how this is done with a dummy specimen of the ballot paper in several locations. So people can either pretend that they don't know, or that, but I think it's the responsibility of the political parties to do that.
Okay, let me take the next question from two perspectives. Overzealousness. There could be some level of overzealousness on the part of the electorate or the citizens, and on the part of security agencies, and normally breeds clash.
Sure.
What we expect in a few hours from now is tolerance on the part of the electorate, tolerance on the part of the security agencies, so that we have a congenial atmosphere, just like Mr. President in his broadcast has said, let everybody at the point of voting tolerate each other towards a peaceful balloting. So to avoid this, what advice do you have for the security agency who might want to be overzealous? And overzealousness could breed crisis, unwanted crisis for that matter.
You know, our experience on the field, as an observer, whether domestic or foreign, is that we see a lot of this overzealousness on display. The last Osun governorship election, I recall that a security agency was banning or was asking an observer not to take picture of the polling booth, not of somebody voting now, of the polling booth, the crowd, and the guy was like, I will seize your phone if you take those pictures. And I had to walk to him and explain to him, sir, what was banned is not taking of pictures of the polling unit. What is banned is that you cannot take your phone inside the voting cubicle to take your picture of your ballot. So some of them, out of overzealousness, you know, misinterpret the regulations or even the law. And because they want to impress their paymasters, they go overboard. My advice to them is to be very professional. Where they are in doubt, in fact, what the law has done in Section 26 of the Electoral Act is that it subordinates the police to the presiding officer.
2015.
Yes. Okay. That has changed in the
2015 law.
Okay. Yes. So what is expected is for the security agencies to be very professional. They are there to maintain order, not to create crisis. the law says, and this is, I'm pointing out areas where there could be conflict with the electorate. For instance, the issue of mobile phone. I'm seizing your phone because you came to polling unit with it. You can't seize my phone. You can only seize my phone if you see me taking it inside the cubicle. That's one. Two is the issue of hanging around after you voted. You know, it's been a consistent conflict. It's only this time around that we are not having that conversation. Maybe because we have a new Inspector General of Police, where the IG will be giving order that the moment you vote, go home. You are not supposed to hang around. The law, even the regulations that was published on January 14, says that you can stay at a safe distance, not too far from the polling unit, provided you will be orderly. The orderliness is emphasized, but you cannot force people to go home after they've cast their ballot, because that's what is called mandate protection. You want to see how the sorting, the counting, the announcement of result for that unit will be. And it is your right. It's part of what you should know, the right to know. And there is what is called citizen result or people's result, which is from EC 60E, which you are supposed to paste at the polling unit after the announcement of result. People want to see that result, so that now we are going to be having 73 presidential candidates and several senatorial and House of Reps candidates. People want to see what is the score of each of those candidates. And you should not drive them away, because, I mean, a clear conscience fears no accusation. If you know you are not going to do anything shady, you don't have to chase people away to say you cannot see what the result of their voting is. But when you discount these two areas, the other area I think they could be conflictual is in terms of where you have huge voting population. People do not know exactly where their voting point is, because with what the law says is that every polling unit that has over several thousands will be broken down to a maximum of 750 voters. It could be between 500 and 750 voters per per voting point. So in searching for your voting point, because the voting point is actually a subdivision of a polling unit, and it could be very close to one another. So people milling around and all of that could create an atmosphere of rowdiness. More so if we have all the 73 political parties contesting this election, fielding polling agents. You can just say, that's the concern some of us have about democratizing the entire polling, the polling process, because every one of those 73 presidential candidates has a right to deploy a polling agent. Okay. Every one of those contesting senatorial and House of Reps could also say, because that's why the law did not say...
That's the beauty of democracy.
That's the beauty of, but that's why the law did not even call them party agents. Okay. It called them polling agents. Polling agent in the sense that a candidate can afford to sponsor, who can afford to sponsor, can have their own. Okay.
Let me just hold it there. Let's go to this quick one. On the last day of his media briefing, daily media briefing, after the rescheduled date was fixed, INEC chairman yesterday was very meticulous in reeling out the Riot Act in his briefing. And one of it, he emphasized seriously, whether citizen voting or polling voting count, whatever, was INEC is the umpire of this election. And INEC has the legal mandate backed up by the Electoral Act, backed up by the Constitution to announce results. Yeah. What do you speak to this?
Nobody can announce results except INEC. For instance, Yaga Africa is deploying what we call parallel vote tabulation, PVT. Now, the PVT, cannot, on the basis of the law, even when it is able to, statistically determine, through some kind of estimates, what the outcome of the process is, it cannot go ahead to announce a result until INEC has done so. We saw an infringement of that in Ekiti, where the then governor did that, and it costs the television station in that state. I don't even know if they have lifted that ban on them until now. I'm not aware yet. But the point is that, like the INEC chairman said, the results, the PU results that you have, PU by PU results, and it's one other important point that we need to make, that when you vote in a polling unit, the result from your polling unit is not representative of the 120,000 polling units. So you can be shouting that you have won in your polling unit. You need to win in majority of polling units for that your rejoicing to be sustained. So many times, because Jide is meticulously dealt with conflict areas, people tell you that votes did not count because they won in their own polling unit, and in another polling unit they lost. They said the vote did not count.
Or that their candidates did not get declared the winner.
You understand? Democracy is that you have to win this election in majority of polling units. Jide also meticulously reeled out different conflict areas, especially as it regards how security agents should conduct themselves. We emphasize that there should be coordination, effective coordination between the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security. There must be that coordination. There shouldn't be rivalry. There shouldn't be territorialism among the security agencies. They should work in harmony. He also have talked to the fox. It is time to also talk to the hen. Okay? The fox being the security agencies, how they should conduct themselves. The hen is you, the voter. People who come to snatch ballot box do not approach the ballot box with roses. They don't come with red roses. Many times they come armed as well. So if you bear arms, and you are thinking that because there is human rights, your own human right is not superior to the right of the majority of people who you are coming to deprive their opportunity to vote. Security agencies will not sacrifice, is very also important. Security agencies will not sacrifice, this whole thing that we're talking about and watch you disrupt the process. So from this morning, as you prepare to go to cast your vote, just ensure that that is the only business you have in that area. You can't stay to protect, do what we call mandate protection. But if you have other businesses around that place, if you come to trade in votes or buy votes, the security agencies will not pamper you. If you come with the intention that you are coming to disrupt the process, to pour ink into the ballot paper so that if they arrest you, they will give you the treatment that you require at that particular point in time. So the most important thing is that this election is a civil matter. Election is a civil matter. Okay. Those who approach election should approach it in a civil way. It is not a war. It is civil, meaning that you have to come, just do this thing. There is no other thing that is required other than casting your vote. And in casting your vote, you don't need to assault anybody. When we were going to Edo, Jide, I don't know if you remember, a lot of people were asking us, do you have insurance? This is Edo election, blah, blah, blah. Obaseki is governor in Edo State. People have moved on. We went to Edo, we are back. When you were going to Ekiti, people were saying, this Ekiti election, this Ekiti election. Nothing happened. We have voted. There is a governor in Ekiti. In 2015, if you remember, 2013, we were told that Nigeria would disintegrate by 2015. People sold their houses in this city and ran away. People were moving as if there was not going to. We are preparing for what? Okay. To vote in.
Beautiful.
Listen, after tomorrow, Omini.
Yes.
After tomorrow.
After today.
No, after
today.
After today.
Yeah. It's a countdown already.
It will take 1 week for people to start preparing for 2023.
Okay. Beautiful. Popular slogan, election is not war. Vote, not fight.
Yeah.
So, let's talk to the generality of Nigerians. When this whole journey began in 1999, it looked as though it would not be sustainable. It looks as though it won't get to this point. We are in 20 years already. Unbroken democracy, still counting. So, something could just happen. They say a minute can change. And all these preparations amount to naught. Can we, in a few words by way of wrap-up, Nigerians across all the political units, across 774 local government areas in Nigeria, 36 states, including the Federal Capital Territory, in a matter of hours, minutes, we're going to the polls to vote who becomes the next president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and who will represent them in the red chamber, talking about the Senate, and the green chamber, talking about the House of Representatives. What message do you have for the Nigerians generally as we conclude?
Well, my message to Nigerians is to maintain peace. There can never be development without peace. So, irrespective of the outcome of today's election, whether it favors your choice candidate or it does not, it's not even the end of the matter. Today's election can still be reviewed by the judiciary. Don't forget, the judiciary have the last say on any election dispute. That's why that provision is there to review, because I think Section 63 of the election, 63 or 68 of the Electoral Act actually said whatever the returning officer says stands and can only be reversed by the court. And that court is deliberately made to have an oversight on the actions of the Independent National Electoral Commission because of the possibility of error of omission or commission. So people should not take laws into their hands. And, you know, when we research into why there was post-election violence in 2011 in those 13 northern states, what we discovered was that it was largely because of misunderstanding of how a winner emerges in an executive election. People thought by winning their ward or polling unit or local government or state, their candidate must be declared the winner, forgetting that the election is rule-based. For instance, two conditions that your candidate must satisfy is that he must have not only majority of lawful vote cards, but also 2/3 or 1/4 of votes in 2/3 of the constituency where it's contested.
Okay. Let me just allow...
Election by itself does not bring development. So it is the activity of people, citizens, that will bring development. So if you think that election is the be it and end it of democracy, you have just lost it. After we have elected people, I call it hiring. After we have hired them to work for us in the next 4 years, we need to also begin to ask for value for money. We need to also give them annual performance like we do to staff everywhere. The upper forms should be given out to them. Let them feel. Let us renew this mandate, especially if we didn't trade with them. If we gave them out of our free choice, then we must be able to analyze their performance in the period. Because what I've discovered in our country is that with all the noise around this election, we treat election like Christmas or Eid al-Malid.
Thank you very much. I must say, Ezenwa Wangu, Chairman, Partners for Electoral Reforms, and member watching the vote working group Yaga Africa. It was nice having you and sharing your thoughts on Nigeria Side Studios.
Thank you, Omini. We'll do it again.
Also, Jide Ojo, Oja Consult and Public Affairs Analyst. Nice having you.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, Nigerians.
In conclusion, I must say it's a countdown in a matter of hours, in a matter of minutes, in a matter of seconds. Nigerians are ready to go to the polls to vote for who becomes the next president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who represents them in the Senate across the 774 local government areas of the Federation, who also represents them in the House of Reps across the 774 local government areas, political units across board. Well, election is not war. It is a civic responsibility And if you sell your votes, if you buy, you have devalued your citizenship, the guests have said. NT Decides, pack put together by the Nigerian Television Authority, is here to give you minute-by-minute account of developments across the length and breadth of the country. Whether difficult or easy to reach areas, we are there to give you all it takes to know about the election of who becomes our next president and indeed our senators and House of Reps members. On behalf of all of us, we are going to bring it to you from all our zonal centers. On behalf of all of us, the producer, the technical crew, the top management, the Decide Studio opens at exactly 6 a.m. And as you prepare to go to vote, stay out of trouble, play by the rules, and remember, the president has said, tolerate each other and ensure that you vote under a peaceful atmosphere. If collectively work together, we'll have a peaceful election in a matter of hours. Thank you so much, and join us on Nigerian Studio at exactly 6 a.m. this morning. Bye-bye.